Ladies and gentlemen, the mayor of Los Angeles, Mayor Eric Garcetti. Nice to see you, man.
Nice to see you too. Good evening.
Look at you.
Absolutely.
Hey,
both casual, two Valley boys, just here.
Absolutely. And a man of his word. I remember when you were running for mayor originally.
Yep.
You said you'd call us, and you did, from the In-N-Out on Lancashire.
That's right.
Just ordering a burger.
Yeah, you know, it was a campaign. The campaigns live on hamburgers, so you got to kind of go from place to place. I think it was, I don't know how late it was, like 8:30, 9 o'clock?
Yeah, it must have been something like that. But running the city of Los Angeles has got to be a pain in the ass, though, right?
It's a challallenging job, no question. I mean,
because everybody blames you or calls you for everything.
And expect that it is, but I kind of knew that getting into it because I've been council member for 12 years.
Right.
I remember when the line that the former mayor of New Orleans just said, when somebody said, "Oh my gosh, that was so intense," when Jeff Flake, remember, got confronted at the elevator by a woman who was a survivor of sexual violence. And he said, "No, that's like 8 times on the way to get milk when you're a mayor." So, you know, like we experience that every single day. You know, people saying, "I love you," people saying, "I hate you," people saying, "Fix this problem," people saying, "I got a crazy idea." But it's what I love about, you know, politics in Washington is disconnected. Here, it's in your face in a good way.
That's right. We have, look, I don't want to get into, you know, all the politics because, you know, this is what I've experienced over the last couple of years, and maybe you can tell me that hopefully you haven't done the same thing. But I was speaking at an event in Long Beach, and it was the Republican Women of Long Beach. I think there's 3 of them left. But
they're looking good.
Yeah, right, they're looking great. No, it's probably about 100 people there. And I asked the 100 people, have you lost a friend or a family member or a friend on Facebook because of the election? And every one of them said yes.
Absolutely.
Isn't that amazing?
We don't know how to talk to each other anymore, and it depresses me. I mean, you can say what you want about last week in the hearings, and people have strong opinions about that. I certainly do. Right. But almost as depressing was just listening to the senators talk to each other.
That's right.
There was once a time when, you know, you'd have Orrin Hatch and Ted Kennedy do something together on education. You know, you have people like Feinstein, who seems like a dying breed in terms of having collegiality, and we lost McCain. You know, we as Americans, like, God forbid at our Thanksgiving dinners this year we actually talk about politics, because I'm scared for most Americans. We don't know how to just say, hey, let's drag down different opinions, but at the end of the day we love each other in a family or in a community. I think we need more of that. Luckily, as a mayor, you know, I have Republican and Democratic mayor friends who are my closest friends. We know how to talk about stuff, and it kind of cuts through the partisanship, and I love that.
Well, I think it's also, you know, face-to-face time. You know, because when I ran into you over at Alex Michelson's show, over at Channel 11, on Fox, you know, I don't think we ever met in person, but we talked to each other over the phone. And there's just a comfort level you get in when you talk to somebody personally, as opposed to seeing them on TV or hearing, you know, backing a proposition or whatever.
Or just hearing a voice or seeing people in 2 dimensions. I think we've dehumanized each other. You know, Democrats can dehumanize Republicans. Republicans know how to dehumanize Democrats. And at the end of the day, you know, most of us care about the same things. You know, Tom Tate is the Republican mayor of Anaheim. He's a dear friend of mine. When we talk about immigration, or we talk about the environment, or we talk about taxes, like, we speak each other's language. And I think most Americans hunger for that right now, even if we're entertained by the more extreme stuff.
Right. Now, speaking of more extreme stuff, the mayor of Los Angeles is with us. John and Ken each left me with one question for you. All right. Here's one from John. My wife, Deborah, has an addiction to black and white photos taken by ex-district attorneys. Does your dad have a gallery?
Yes, he actually has a show right now on Sawtelle. I should know the name of the place, but if you go to Garcetti.com, that's where he has all his photographs. My dad totally reinvented his life post-politics. He was a producer on The Closer, you know, the great show that was on TNT. An amazing photographer, and he's a UN ambassador for water, helping villages in Africa and other places get water that don't have it. With World Vision and other, you know, organizations like that. So
do you hang with your dad at all?
All the time. I love my dad, love my mom. I had 2 great parents, have 2 great parents, and a great sister. Yeah, he's like my closest friend and advisor. And you know, it was funny that people think that he was a politician. He was just a prosecutor who then ran for DA, but he's like the least political person I know. I mean, he has strong beliefs about things, but he kind of accidentally happened upon being DA, loved it for 8 years, but loves life afterwards even more.
See, I envision you and your dad sitting at the racetrack on the rail, drinking a beer, smoking cigarettes, and yelling at the horses.
But I don't think my dad's ever smoked a cigarette. I certainly have before. I don't anymore. And yeah, he wasn't more. That was my grandfather you're describing. So my grandfather, who's Mexican immigrant, Salvador Garcetti, came here when he was 1 year old.
Wow.
Never finished junior high school, but he ran around in Boyle Heights with Bugsy Siegel and Mickey Cohen.
Is
those
that
guys.
right?
So he loved like the Jewish gangsters. So he was very happy when my dad married a Jewish woman, my mom.
Right.
And he was arrested. Funny story, in Van Nuys, I used to spend the night over at his house with my grandma and him. And there was a distinguished man on TV one morning, and he said, I know him, he's the mayor of LA, Tom Bradley. I couldn't believe my humble barber, you know, former gangster, like grandfather knew him. I said, how do you know him, Grandpa? He said, oh, when I was younger and he was younger, he arrested me.
Okay.
So
was he with LAPD?
Yeah, because you know, Tom Bradley, of course, was a police officer.
Well, that's right, yeah, right.
So
exactly.
my predecessor arrested my grandfather.
Here's a question from Ken Shampole from the John and Ken Show. Dear Mr. Mayor, we drive the same car. I'm thinking of changing mechanics. Do you hear anything good about Ernie's Garage in Culver City?
I've heard
Man, I thought you were going to be really sharp.
Come on, John.
Yeah, questions. They'll be like really hard hitting.
I'll say this: no matter what car you drive, I think it's important for us to keep, you know, SB1 going. So I'm voting no on Prop 6. But thanks for the question.
All right. I think I'll cancel your vote out there.
Ernie's is reputable, but you know.
Hey,
I find places in the valley are a little cheaper.
Yeah, they are. Hey, how did we, speaking of politics, how did we get the Rams and the Chargers to come back, and yet the city of LA lost out on both of those? Doesn't that piss you off?
No, not at all. Actually, I'm not territorial about LA. I think we're one big city, so if Inland Empire does well or Inglewood does well, we've got plenty to share. And, you know, the folks who come from out of town to see a game in Inglewood, they'll stay in hotels in LA City. They'll go through our airport. So, no, Mayor Butts is a dear friend, and I'm excited. We're going to do the Olympics in the city of LA and in Inglewood. Probably the opening ceremonies will be in the Coliseum and the new Rams Stadium. So
that's interesting.
It's a great thing. You know, we had so much stuff downtown. Other places didn't have it. Inglewood lost the Lakers. We now have them. It's, for me, as long as the region, most of us don't care that much about what city we're in. We work in one city, live in another. As long as the region does well, and I think we're really, you know, jobs-wise and economy doing better than we've done in decades.
Yeah, I think you're right. But speaking of Proposition 6,
yes.
which you mentioned, is there a tax that you remember that you voted against, you hated it?
Sure, and I've even lowered the city business tax, you know, which is something not a lot of Democrats do, but
right.
I don't love taxes. I hate paying a mechanic a few $100. It's $749 on average for us as drivers,
right.
versus a few cents at the pump. I'm not speaking as a mayor. I don't even get to spend most of that money. It's the state. But I'm sick of roads not being smooth, bridges that could collapse in an earthquake. It's, you know, it's like your house. You can say, hey, I'm going to save some money, honey. I'm not going to do anything on that roof, but eventually it collapses.
Speaking of houses, we grew up in the same neighborhood.
Absolutely.
I grew up on Magnolia and Balboa. You grew up
Woodley,
in the flats.
Right by Magnolia too.
On Woodley.
I was between two freeways when there was leaded gas, which explains a lot of why.
Yeah. They say if you live within a half mile of freeway growing up, that's bad news.
Well,
and you live near the two busiest freeways in the world.
And the 101. Both my parents have had cancer between the two, like 5 times. My sister once. I'm the only guy, knock on wood, but I think we had a little cancer cluster just because we're all breathing that leaded gas, but thankfully things have gotten better.
So, I mean, you're a little younger than I am, but we all went to the same joints there in Encino. Tony Roma's, where you wait out in line outside.
It smelled like ribs for a mile. El Torito, the McDonald's, the House of Pancakes, but also, you know, I enjoy bagels, which is my favorite bagel place.
I enjoy it great. Yeah, it was on Balboa and Ventura.
Yeah, exactly.
But they also had, and what was the restaurant where they had all the singing waiters and waitresses? Star something. But but remember Town and Country?
Yeah,
I go
Town
back
and
to
Country,
before Town and Country, before Plaza de Oro.
Yep, absolutely. Town and Country was amazing. You know, I used to always hang out at Encino Bowl. Poppy Star. Yeah. That's right. Wow. Good memory.
Poppy Star.
I'd forgotten about Poppy Star.
That was the big restaurant in Encino.
But for me, it's Galleria, hot dog on a stick. Not the fancy new gallery, but like the old.
The old gallery was great.
One.
I really miss the old one.
I had to switch buses coming home from school every day, so I'd get off the bus to get onto the Ventura bus, and then I just happened to get into the Galleria and play video games for 2 hours.
Right. Were you a beach bus guy where you take from Sepulveda to Ventura?
Yeah.
Ventura, you took it to Westwood, and then Westwood to the beach.
Exactly. In the 425, I think it was.
Right. And you end up at Orange Julius.
Yeah.
With all that's we lived the same childhood.
You know, we were like
ships
passing
in the night. You became mayor, and I'm doing radio.
Well, let's switch.
With 9 people listening.
In a few years.
All right, can you stay with us?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Mayor Eric Garcetti is with us, and we are live on KFI. More now there in bed. That really is great.
I forgot Poppy.
That is, Poppy Star. Remember that?
Yeah.
The singing waiters and waitresses.
That was a little too much, but.
Now you have kids, right, or one?
Yeah, we got a daughter who's 6 3/4 this year.
Oh man.
Just tucked her into bed.
That's the best.
Yeah, we've been foster parents too, so we have others. I can usually don't say the details, but we have a 25-year-old who's our foster son who lives with us still.
Oh, okay, that's
He's
good.
come back and lived with us now, Tommy. So a 25 and a 6.5.
My daughter just turned 13.
Yeah, I heard.
And we never planned on having kids.
Yeah.
But then my wife got pregnant, so that changed. And it's by a billion light years what is the greatest thing I've ever had happen to me in my life.
Absolutely. I would give up every single thing in the world.
I would too,
continue
in a
my father.
heartbeat. I would give
I was saying, you know what
everything
you
up.
should do? She's not too old probably, she could still do it, is there's a daddy-daughter camp every year at Hollywoodland. It's a single weekend.
Oh, really?
They set up everything, like all the arts and crafts, the wall. You're in the middle of Griffith Park, but you feel like you could be in Lake Arrowhead. You don't see another human being.
Do you do it every year with her?
Yeah, we've done twice this year. We just did it 2 weekends ago. It was
that's great.
awesome.
And what is her name?
Maya.
Maya.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Maya. What's your daughter's name?
Sophia. Yeah, she's named after my dad's mom. Conway Show, Mayor Eric Garcetti is with us.
That's right.
And we were just talking about the LA Kings. You're a Kings fan growing up.
Absolutely. Love the
And,
Kings.
yeah,
Lakers,
so was I.
Rams.
I think the first Kings game I went to, it was I think it was 1971 or 72.
Yeah.
And I go back to the Triple Crown line,
Absolutely.
Vachon, all those guys. And so I was 40 years of we'll get him next year, we'll get him next year. And finally, when they won that Stanley Cup, it was one of the greatest things, other than my daughter being born and my wedding. It was really one of the greatest nights of my life.
It was surreal. Like, we couldn't believe it as Kings fans that it happened.
Yeah. But then the second time they won, that's when you used the F word.
Yeah. Well, I said there are 2 rules in politics: never be pictured with alcohol in your hands and never swear. But you can beat me up. But I picked up the Bud Light and said this. But this is a big friggin' day. And I didn't know it was live on Fox Sports 1, which
How soon afterwards did you know it was live?
As soon as I left the ice, and my staff looked at me with the biggest eyes I've ever seen them. Basically swallowed their heads.
That is great. Hey, all right, let's talk a little bit about California.
Yeah,
we have the smartest people in the world in Silicon Valley. We got Facebook, Google, a ton of companies up there, Twitter. We also have the greatest coastline, the greatest agriculture, and the funniest, most creative people in Hollywood. And yet, as a state with all those things, even with high taxes and stuff, we're broke. Isn't that...
Well, the state had a $9 billion surplus, which is part of what I said, spend that on us again. Either give us a tax break and reduce some of the taxes, give us some money for homelessness, which we did get this year. But they created they have a $9 billion surplus we created. So the state actually finally, and credit to Governor Brown, he balanced those budgets and socked it away. But I think in some ways they were almost too greedy with that money when we have things like homelessness on our streets. And the state really had been missing in action until this year. So
right, but the pensions are going to catch up to us. I mean, you with your budget,
we
with
did a
the
big
city of
pension
Los
reform,
Angeles, was the pension reform?
We did a big piece when I was council president. So we actually had our employees now, in some cases, triple or quadruple, but at least double what they pay in for their pensions, which isn't 100% of the work, but maybe 75% of what we needed to now have among the highest rated pensions in the country. We pay our healthcare stuff ahead of time, but you're right, the state hasn't really owned up to that disaster, and that was really tough. I mean, we had protesters today, some of the city unions were protesting, saying, Eric Garcetti, give us a contract, and I'm going to give them a fair contract, but we have to live in our means.
So you catch it from everybody.
Absolutely. Left,
from Republicans,
right,
Democrats, Independents.
That's part of the fun, and I get love from everybody too sometimes, so it's, I think I like that accountability.
Right. Where the homeless issue, it's one of the things that you've decided to tackle in a big way, bigger than the other mayors. But still, when the city council decides to put up new housing for the homeless, they're met by 10,000 or 3,000 irate residents, and then they back down.
Well, to their credit, so far they haven't. Like Koreatown, that was the biggest protest. Council President Weston sat down with folks. They moved it 3 blocks away, came to a resolution, and used the old place to build permanent housing for folks who've been homeless. So we got actually double the number of units after all that.
Right, but this one in Sherman Oaks is really a lot of people.
I think Councilmember Rue's not backing down there too. And I grew up there. A lot of people say, hey, would you put it on your block? I get that all the time. Right. I would love it at the end of my block. There was a homeless guy that woke me up the last year and a half, probably every 3 nights at 4 a.m. during his witching hour. I used to go out there, talk to him, try to give him some food. And we need to solve it in the neighborhoods where it exists. We can't just say, hey, dude, there's a shelter bed cross town. You're in the valley, there's a bed in South LA. And by the way, you're going to get kicked out at 7 in the morning, can't bring your pet, can't bring your partner, no place to store your stuff, and there's no services there. So it's a different model. And I think, you have to confront people's fears because I think they get scared about what it is that would come into their neighborhood. But the first one's open right now at Olvera Street. The merchants that are there are so happy, and they totally feared it before, but they realized, oh, this is a place with 24/7 security, mental health care. It's like a place people can get well, and this county has collectively failed to confront it. I think we finally are.
I went to Olvera Street last weekend, or 2 weekends ago, and maybe this is something you can help me out with, personal favor. But taquitos, rice and beans, $18.
I know, that's too much.
Isn't that way too much?
And those folks are always telling me that they need cheaper rent. So if we give them cheaper rent, I want to make sure it's reflected in the taquitos.
Right, but isn't it, but Olvera Street, I used to go there, I'm sure you did as well, in 3rd, 4th grade, you know, on a field trip. It's the same people, the same vibe,
I think it's the same donkey you can take a picture with.
Right, it is. And you can go back into your past and experience, you know, your past there. I love it, Olvera Street. But it should get more attention, you know. It really.
They get a lot of people now. It's been the National Park Service is there. They're programming a whole bunch of new stuff. They're moving some new things that are in there, and there's a lot that's being built around it. My dream is there's been talk to do the 101 freeway there is below the grade of the city. So why not cap it and make it a continuous kind of park from Olvera Street to where City Hall is, and it'll be a kind of a great area to hang out at Central Park for the city.
Right. The people that complain about downtown, I think it's Cedros, the street there with all the trash on it, typhus and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you put $300,000 into this, but you know who to call. I mean, you were a council member for a long time.
I was disgusted when I heard about that. Like, my philosophy is own up to a problem. When it happens, don't say, oh no, we're doing great. Somebody screwed something up. Even though we respond to 11,000 requests for cleanups in that area, and we've done it. All it takes is 1-2 weeks, rats get there, people have typhus. So we set up, I immediately said, somebody has to change this, we're gonna put overtime into this, and we expanded out. We have 300 acres now, we're proactively cleaning up around Skid Row. But the big solution is we have to clean up Skid Row itself, not just the trash that's there. And that's why I hope with some of the state money we just got, we can put about 20 million into building new beds and shelter in Skid Row, because that's the only way to get people off the sidewalks.
Eric Garcetti is with us, and you are going to run for president, or some days you think?
I don't know. I'll decide after the November elections. I've been pretty straightforward. I'm thinking about it, but only if I can help LA out more. I mean, sometimes I get frustrated that there's not much national leadership on things like infrastructure. You know, that was something the president talked about doing, and the Democrats, and there hasn't been any infrastructure bill passed.
Right.
Things like mental health, which not only affects homelessness, but opioids and suicides. So, I think I'd love to stay here till the last day of being mayor. This is such a privilege to be the mayor. But these are kind of dire times too, so it's the only reason I'm thinking about it. And even if I don't, I hope some mayors do jump in, because I think mayors could blast through a lot of this left-right stuff. They could blast through partisanship. We don't care about tweets, we care about streets. It's kind of a little different for us. I know you like Jesse Jackson, so I'm trying to bring some poetry here.
That's right.
What did Eric Garcetti really say?
That's exactly right. Ding dong with you. All right, I know you got to split. You got to wake up and deal with LA every day, every single day, man. You never get a break.
No way. I tuck my daughter into bed, and I'm here right now working. So
that is, it's a thankless job, and it is filled with people yelling at you all the time.
I'm happy to do it.
But if you run for president, we'll ask you to maybe announce it on the show.
I'll come here and do it, and if I don't, I'll come here and announce it too.
Okay. All right. Very nice to see you.
All right. Thanks,
and
man.
Congratulations on a beautiful daughter.
Appreciate it.
That is really cool.
You as well.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
All right, we're live on KFI AM 640. More now there in Bedford.